How would you like to hear about the Tar Heels from a collegiate head basketball coach who's been around this program for 2 decades? Well, today we get exactly that opportunity.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and I want to thank you for joining us to get your first listen or watch of the day. I want to remind you that our program is free and available anywhere you can subscribe to podcasts, so go ahead and do that. Coming up on today's show, really fun conversation. We're joined by the head coach of Milligan University, an NAIA school, interestingly enough, my alma mater. But Coach Bill Robinson is a coach that has been working the North Carolina basketball camp for 2 decades. He's got such great insight about the history, but also about this year's Tar Heels as well. So we're going to cover all of that. Great conversation coming up right now. Man, it's so good to be joined today on Locked On Tar Heels by Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach of Milligan University, an NAIA school in East Tennessee. And you might be wondering, Isaac, why on earth are we having this gentleman on the show today? Well, coincidentally enough, Milligan University is my alma mater, but even more importantly, this man has been connected to the Carolina basketball program for longer than most of the young men that he coaches there at Milligan University. Coach, it's great to have you on. We're going to have an opportunity today to talk a good deal about your connections to the UNC program throughout the years. But a program that you've seen up close and personal, including this year's roster. So we're going to have some great insight into the team, but I want to start by just looking back to help give the audience, a good idea about where you're coming from, how you know the team and the program so well. Would you just share a little bit about how you got connected to the North Carolina basketball program?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I was coaching at Montreat College over just outside Asheville. Recruited a local kid from Owen High School, and those who know Coach Williams knows the connection with Owen High School. Recruited the local kid. He ran track for a guy by the name of Porky Spencer. So when he came, Jesse Gardner was the player. Jesse came and played with me. I got to know Porky as a friend, and found out that Porky had played high school ball for Roy Williams. Think about that. Think about how long ago that was. But his dad was a truck driver. wasn't around, to take him to practice or home from practice. So his high school coach took him to practice and brought him home every day. And his high school coach just happened to be Roy Williams. So when Porky and I became friends, Coach was still out of Kansas and asked me if I worked Kansas camp. And I said, there's no way I can leave my wife and kids at the time, where I think we're 8, 6, and 4. There's no way I could leave and go 2 weeks in Kansas. So when Coach Williams got the job again in Chapel Hill, he said, what's your excuse now? I said, I don't have one. What do I need to do? He says, you need to email this guy. His name's CB McGrath. Tell him you're the guy I told him about. So I emailed CB, got a response within a day saying, sorry, we're full. So I ran into Jesse in the gym one day. He said, I hear you're going to work Carolina camp. I said, I didn't get in. He said, did you tell Porky? I said, why would I tell Porky? It's full. I got an email about 24 hours later saying, we got an opening if you want to join us at Carolina camp this summer. So Jesse told Porky. Porky called Coach Williams. Coach Williams called CB. And I've been working camp ever since. So this summer was 20 years down at Carolina camp.
Wow. That's crazy. So that would have been the summer of like 03 or somewhere in there?
04. Yeah, it was 04.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect time to come in right before the 2005 championship season.
Yeah, man, that is indeed a good time. It's like I think about me as a Braves fan. I started loving the Braves in ’91 when they got good, and you hit that camp just as Coach Williams was getting things rolling again. That's so neat. We want to go in and talk about some of those camp experiences over the past 2 decades, but I know people are really chomping at the bit to hear more about this year's team, which you got to see again up close and personal this summer at camp. And so let's talk about that roster. It's such a weird time in roster construction for college basketball, as you are very well aware yourself. Carolina at this point has 14 players on its roster, utilizing only 11 of their 13 scholarships. It's 4 returners, 5 transfers, and 2 freshmen. Coach, as you look at this roster, what do you make of it?
Well, I'm not surprised that only 11 scholarships are used. Hubert called me in the spring. We were talking about some stuff, and he told me, he said, I'm only going to go with 11. And I said, are you sure? He said, it's just gotten to the point with playing time. It's just so hard to have 13 guys on the roster that are all expecting time. He said, I'm going to get to 11. I'm going to stop. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But I'm super excited about this roster to see them firsthand. I know Hubert's super excited too. Obviously, the shooting was a big problem. The consistency from the 3-point line, I think that has been addressed. Even having somebody back up for Armando now with James coming in, I think all the pieces are in place for them to be very successful.
And when camp was going on this summer, James wasn't there yet, right? He would be the only one of the 11 that wasn't. Yeah. So in your conversation, go ahead. Sorry.
It's just cool to see how everybody came in and how well they worked together. The difference, I think, between this team and some of the other teams, as recently at least, the high IQ of everybody who they brought in. The guys know how to play the game. They know how to play together. They're willing to share the basketball. If somebody takes a shot, they're happy when that guy takes a shot. If it's the right shot, they're just looking for the best shot, not just a shot, not even a good shot, but looking for the best shot. And when the best shot comes, they don't really care who takes it, as long as they're much more efficient that way.
Interesting. Because you talked about needing to address that shooting, which, hello, everyone who watched the Carolina game recently noticed that last year. Do you feel like Coach Davis feels like he has accomplished that, addressing those shooting issues?
I think there's no doubt that Cormac Ryan brings just a deadly sniper shooter. His release is as quick as anybody that I've ever seen.
Really?
I mean, as quick as Wayne Ellington, as quick as any of those guys that we've seen recently that are just great shooters. His footwork is immaculate. He knows when he's going to shoot it before he catches it, and he's just really fun to watch shoot. Klay Thompson, fun. I love to watch Klay Thompson just shoot the basketball. Cormac Ryan's in that same conversation. But, obviously Elliot is a true point guard, and he's going to get everybody else involved, but he can make shots too. And RJ is going to be the guy when it comes to making those shots on the perimeter. We saw that in the camp game. When they needed a bucket, they got the ball to RJ, and RJ made a play and won the game. So they're definitely much better shooters than what they've had in recent memory, for sure.
That's great news. And you also talked about finding that best shot. And I think obviously that is the key, is not just, as you said, getting a shot, but getting the shot. A stat that I track every year is assist percentage. For those who don't know, just the number of shots that have an assist associated with them. For Carolina, the last year was under 50%, which is a number that is not bueno. And so, Coach, you talked about their willingness and ability to keep moving the ball until they find that shot. Do you expect, with that IQ that you talked about, this to be a team that shares the ball better on a consistent basis in terms of getting assists?
Yeah, I think that stat has a couple different factors to it. One of them is too much one-on-one play in the half court. The other thing for me that I'm excited about is we haven't played fast enough. And when I mean Carolina, just the pace has not been stereotypical Carolina pace. We're going to see them play a lot faster. And when you play faster, you're going to get those opportunities to get quick baskets, which usually come from a long pass or from something that's in the half court that creates more assists when it comes to those baskets. So I expect to see them play a lot faster. I expect them to see a lot more team play, a lot more passing, and Cadeau is going to be a big part of that.
I believe that is music to the ears of people listening to this show, Coach. Speaking of Elliot Cadeau, we want to talk about him and just how hard it is for a freshman to come in and lead a team. And also, I want to get a little bit of your scouting report that you would use if you were bringing the Buffs in to play the North Carolina Tar Heels. We're going to do that in just a second. But first, this episode of Locked on Tar Heels is brought to you by our brand new sponsor, Neutrifol. You don't have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Neutrifol provides a whole body health approach for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, but it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning with Neutrifol, which is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. So go to Nutrifol.com/men to take their hair health wellness quiz. Identify causes of your thinning hair, and then Nutrifol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. Take the first step right now to visibly thicker, healthier hair, because for a limited time, Nutrifol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrifol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrifol for healthier hair. Nutrifol.com/men, spelled Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONCollege. One more time, that's Nutrifol.com/men, promo code LOCKEDONCollege. Once again, we're joined today on Locked On Tar Heels by Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach at Milligan University in East Tennessee, the Buffaloes, and as I said earlier, coincidentally enough, my alma mater as well. And so, Coach, I want you to put on your coaching and scouting hat right now. And we just talked about Carolina's roster for this upcoming season, some things that you had seen, some things that Coach Davis had seen. If you were taking the Milligan Buffaloes to Dean Smith Center to play Carolina this year, what would you be most wary of as you were prepping your scouting report?
We talked a little bit about pace of play. We'd have to slow down the game and try to keep it in the 40s and 50s. And I think we'd be happy just to be able to run the shot clock down and get something late. I think that's going to be the strength. I think that the strength of Carolina this year is going to be the depth. They're going to be able to play fast. They're going to be able to play a lot of guys. And I would love to see them turn up the pressure. And I would hope that we could even handle the ball enough to get shots. But I think that they've got the flexibility to play however Coach Davis and his staff determine is best for them. And Coach Frederick and I talked a little bit briefly about it this summer, that they want to play faster. They want to do some things defensively a little bit different than just sit down and play man-to-man. That's part of it. That's a big part of it. But I'd love to see them do some trapping in the half court, maybe even some full court, just picking up 94 feet, just to make everything hard for that opponent.
And to be clear, I'm guessing you don't mean like we're going to see a lot more zone or things like that, but just some of those run and jump kind of moments that we're used to seeing from the Tar Heels.
I'd love to see them get back to run and jump stuff. And I'm not looking to see them do a lot of full court pressure, but just trying to wear down people so they can't play, point guard can't play 35 or 36 minutes a game. They're just going to be too tired facing pressure against multiple defenders for the rest of the game. So that's what I'm looking for. We'd obviously try to play a lot of zone against them and hope that guys miss shots. The problem with that is that we don't have anybody to box out Armando either. So I'd love to see them stretch the floor a little bit more. Yeah, give him the opportunity to get those offensive rebounds like he does so well.
Yeah. And you talked about that depth, and that has been kind of a sticking point for a lot of the Carolina fan base these first 2 years of Coach Davis, who have been so used to seeing the 10, 11, 12 guys deep that Coach Williams would typically go, whereas Coach Davis really hasn't been utilizing that much of his bench. With that more depth that he has this year, do you legitimately think that we will see Carolina go a little deeper into the bench this year?
I definitely think so. Trust is a big thing, and we're not in practice every day. It's trying to us trying to make a decision of a court case, but yet we're not seeing all the evidence. So we can't sit there and really know what's going on. I trust Coach Davis, and I think he has to trust those guys he sees in practice every day, and they have to earn those minutes, and I think they will. Starting lineups, depending on if you have Harrison Ingram or Jae'lyn Withers, or who's going to play in that 4 spot, but I'm telling you, the guy I love the most, and this is going to be the sleeper for everybody, is Paxson Wojcik. Paxson is super fun to watch. He's hurt the Tar Heels as an opponent. He knows how to play the game. He's a coach's kid. He just brings super energy. The left hand's always a little bit, maybe deceptive when it comes to how to defend the guy, but he can shoot it. He can rebound. If you don't box him out, he'll sneak and get a tip dunk. I mean, he can do some really special things. And I don't see him starting, but he's going to play. Jae'lyn Withers or Harrison Ingram, either one who's not starting is going to play. James is going to bring some minutes for Armando's not going to play 40 minutes a game. So,
Sure.
You're already talking about 8 or 9 there. So there's plenty of guys that are sitting there just dying to get time, and practice, I think, is going to be war every day, every possession, every second of play is going to be those guys trying to earn those minutes.
Man, that's great. Love it. Now, the flip side, I asked you what you would need to be wary of if the Buffaloes were playing North Carolina. But what about on your side of things? What might you see as maybe a couple deficiencies or some areas that you might try to exploit where you might find an advantage if you were an opponent this year?
That's a great question. I think I would make Armando defend every possession. I would try to take it right at him and try to get him in foul trouble and try to get him out of that middle, because then the defensive glass becomes easier. You got to finish possessions. If he's on the floor, it's harder for me to finish possessions. So I'm going to try to make him, I don't want him playing 32 minutes a game. If he plays 20, 24 minutes a game, I got a chance to win that game.
Interesting.
I wouldn't let Cormac Ryan get going. I would put my best, perimeter defender on him and just not let him get hot. If he gets hot, he can carry the team, and then he obviously stretches the floor and makes all those gaps even bigger for Cadeau and R.J. Davis to be able to slash. And once they get to the lane, everything breaks down. So we got to figure out a way to keep those guys in front. Much easier said than done, obviously. But those are things that I would do. You just can't let Armando get going inside.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And if you can get him out of the game, it's a little bit more of a question mark behind him. Do you go to James Okonkwo next? Do you go to Jalen Washington next? Neither of whom are Armando, to be fair. And so that'll be an interesting thing to watch. Of course,
Talk high about Paxson, but Jalen Washington played well this summer too.
Really?
He's gained a little bit of weight. He looks more confident. If he's healthy, I think he could be a huge asset, because he is 6'9", 6'10", and he can shoot the three, he can spread the floor, and he can do some really special things. So they're definitely going to have options at every position, but he brings kind of a different special skill set that really nobody else has.
Yeah, that is an interesting wrinkle, and that big if of his health, as you just said, is the question mark. I talked about a couple weeks ago. This is his first healthy offseason since going into his sophomore year of high school, and so definitely a big question mark and some hopeful expectation for Jalen Washington. Now, Coach, you've talked about the guy that's going to be trying to get everyone lined up, get everyone distributed the ball, and that's Elliot Cadeau. Now, I know the Carolina fan base is over the moon to have this guy. There's all the Kendall Marshall comparisons of first true real point guard since him. You mentioned that earlier of, now RJ can just more often go be the shooting guard. Now you've got a point guard who can get the ball more often to Armando where he needs it, to Cormac and whoever's at the 4 and all of those things. You saw Elliot this summer up close, personal. Is all this the love, the talking about him, is it justified? Should folks be as excited as they are about Elliot and what he'll bring?
Absolutely, without a doubt. The kid's the real deal, and he understands the game. And there's some people who say, well, he reclassed, he should still be in high school. He's going to turn 19 this fall. So it's not like he's a 17-year-old kid, He's been there, he's done it. He's played against the best at his age groups and above. He reminds me more of Ty Lawson, where the game looks like it's easy. Like he doesn't look like he's playing super hard, but yet he's faster than everybody else, and he can explode and he get by people when he needs to, and he knows where the ball's supposed to be. You talk about getting the ball to Armando. It's not just getting the ball; it's getting to him where he wants it in the right spots at the right time. He understands all of those concepts. But he's also from end to end as quick as anybody I've seen since Ty Lawson. That was the big debate of the camp, is he as fast as Ty?
The fact that that's a conversation. Yeah,
exactly. And that was an argument back and forth between some coaches. But he is that quick, but he's under control too. So he understands not just the pace. It's the slow, the fast, the go, the stop, whatever he needs to do to be able to get to the spots he needs to be successful. He's got that. But he can also knock down jump shots. I think he's probably as good a shooter now as Ty was as a freshman.
Well, Coach, let me ask you this, because this is something I just talked about a couple days ago, is how old this Carolina team is. Outside of Elliot and Zayden High and the two sophomores and Seth Trimble and Jalen Washington, everyone else is an upperclassman, juniors, seniors, and grads. Just like, help us get a frame of reference. Like, let's say you're bringing in a true freshman to run your team and everyone surrounding him is juniors and seniors and grads. How hard is it for a freshman to come in and take the reins of what's an otherwise upperclassman laden team?
I think it's much easier to do it at Carolina than it would be at Milligan, because they get to spend all summer together. And so the guys accept it. Guys just want to win. And if they want to win, they'll accept him knowing that he's going to be a big part of them winning games. So I don't think it's going to be as big an issue. My issue, and what kind of Hubert and I talked about a little bit, was where do the minutes come from? You got guys who are used to play. As the transfers come in, they're all used to playing 30 minutes plus. So if you have, Cormac, Paxson, Harrison, Jae'lyn, RJ, Armando, Elliot's going to play 30-plus minutes. You got all those guys who have played 30 or more minutes. You run out of minutes. So somewhere along the line, somebody's going to have to sacrifice some minutes for the team, knowing that it's better. That's hard. That's really hard, and especially hard when they're trying to develop, their case, their resume for professionally, down the road. So those are the issues I'm more worried about. I think right now everybody's in this honeymoon phase where everybody loves each other and everybody's great. But what happens when push comes to shove and the minutes start being doled out? What happens when someone's not getting the most? And again, winning solves all that. So if they're winning and their schedule's brutal, and I think that's planned. But I mean, they're going to take on everybody and anybody that comes. But as long as they're winning, I think that will solve itself. But there's going to be some guys who got to check their egos at the door, just willing to fight and get whatever time they. And it's competitive. They've got to play well. You play well, you're gonna get your time. You don't play well, you don't make shots, then maybe your time goes down, and that's just the reality of it all.
Yeah, that is, the math says there's only 200 minutes to be shared, and it's got to get cut somewhere. So we'll see what happens with that. Coach, one of the things you talked about that you saw this summer was Elliot against Cole Anthony in going up, and as you see these two guys, what was that like?
It was a blast. It was fun. It was just so much fun. The guys, have an opportunity at the end of camp every night. The guys play pickup at 10 o'clock, and us coaches, some of us are tired, just want to go back to the dorm and crash or go get a bite to eat. But knowing that Cole was going to be there every night, it was a huge crowd of coaches from camp just to be able to see those two going at it. Cole Anthony's obviously a pro, and he's actually obviously a very good pro. But if you saw the two of them compete against each other, there was not a huge, a talent distribution, difference between the two of those guys. So it was exciting to see the two of them really go at each other. And I mean, Elliot made Cole play hard. It wasn't just pick up in the summertime. They went at each other, and I think they both got the best of each other at times. But, man, it was so much fun to watch them go. And you realize how good Elliot's going to be if he can, as an incoming freshman, already compete with an proven NBA player like that. So it was fantastic to watch.
Man, and such a big part of the Carolina culture in the summer, as you alluded to just a minute ago, of these guys coming back and being able to help prepare the current team for what they will face. I want to talk about some more of those camp memories and some of the things that Coach has seen over 20 years being there as part of the Carolina culture and what's going on. We're going to hit that in just a second. It's been great so far today on Locked On Tar Heels. We're talking with Coach Bill Robinson, head coach at Milligan University, been working the Carolina basketball camp for the last 2 decades. And that's where we want to move now, from talking about this year's team to just kind of looking back on some of the fun stories, some of the things he's seen and experienced. And Coach, I'm just going to kind of let you take this where you want to, because I know that head is full of awesome stories and memories and conversations, and I'll just let you go, and then I'll butt in a couple times here and there, and we can keep talking.
Yeah, camp's been really special to me, and in fact, I've asked. Actually, it's going on 4 years now. So I asked Coach Williams first about the possibility of writing a camp book. And then when Hubert took over, obviously I asked his permission. He's like, "Yeah, go for it. You got to do it." So I've got a lot of stories, and it started early on with Frank Fuqua, who was a longtime camp coach, and he was actually Coach Williams said he learned 75% of what he learned about post play from Frank.
Really?
And back in the day when they weren't allowed to do a whole lot in the summer, Frank would come in and he'd work out with the post players and ask me to come and join them. And basically, I was just a passer and a rebounder, but I got to learn and see the master teacher at his finest. So it was an awesome opportunity for me to see him work out with the Marvin Williams, the Tyler Hansbroughs, the Sean Mays. Just an incredible time for me. And that's how I got to know some of those guys. And even Ed Davis and some of those guys, when they come back in the summer, they don't know who I am, but they know I'm coach. And they'll say, "Hey, coach, good to see you." They couldn't tell you my name, but they know that, I used to be involved in those workouts. So, but camp's a very special time for me. You never know who's going to be in camp. This year we had Chris Paul Jr. in camp. And, he was in camp on a Thursday, and that Sunday night I'm watching Sunday Night Baseball, and there's Chris Paul and Chris Paul Jr. at Dodger Stadium. So there's a lot of cool stories like that from camp. And with Coach Williams, he's not normal. He wasn't the normal type coach where he get his picture taken with every kid in camp. And one day he got pictures with all 750 kids in the morning. I go to my morning session, come back. The baseball game from the World Series is up on the hallway and on the wall outside the cafeteria in Granville, and they span up into the crowd, and there's Coach Williams in Omaha, Nebraska at the baseball game, because he's going to support those Tar Heel baseball guys too. And then that night we're watching the high school play kids in the Smith Center, the oldest kids in camp, and then walks Roy Williams. It just stuff like that is just not normal. It's just really cool to see how much he cares about camp and made sure that he was really a part of it. You see him every day, and it's a special thing for me and all of us. We just love being able to get a chance to hang out with our friends that we only see once a year at camp, but also get a chance to try to teach the game we all love.
That's so fun. You mentioned getting to see like Tyler Hansbrough and some of those moments. You've told me a story before about getting warned about Tyler ahead of time. What was that memory?
Yeah. Well, Frank said we were getting ready to work out this new freshman that was coming in that was highly recruited. I didn't know his name, but Frank said, "Yeah, we got to be careful about the new kid." I said, "Why?" I said, "Coach Williams told me that he'll hurt us." I said, "He'll hurt us?" He said, "Yeah, he won't do it on purpose. He just kind of gets out of control with his body, and he'll run you over. So you got to make sure you stay out of his way." And of course, that was Tyler Hansbrough. The couple funny stories from that first year is he didn't know who I was. And the last day of camp, I'm packed up, ready to leave. He comes up to me and says, "Hey, coach, what time are we working out today?" And I said, "Oh man, I'm going home. You're not going to see me for a while." But I did get an autograph ball from him that day. I knew he was going to be really good. And I swear he took out 2 minutes to be able to write out every letter of his first name and every letter of his last name. And if you look online to see what his autograph looks like now, it's just a T and a slash and an H and a slash. But that early days before he even played a game there, he was going to make sure he got every single letter of his name. Those were really fun times.
That's good. You've mentioned to me some fun stories about like Pete Chilcutt and Henrik Rodel. Would you recount some of that?
Yeah, this summer especially was really a special summer. Pat Sullivan, assistant coach, was going to run the main gym. He had a doctor's appointment that he was going to miss the first night of the first session, and they put me co-gym head with him so I could start the first session. The second session, I was actually officiating a wedding of one of my players, former Milligan players, and his wife, so I was going to miss the first night of the second session. So they just put the two of us together, and the second week we had 6 former players in my gym that I was working with, which was really cool. Octavius Barnes, Kevin Madden, Marcus Page, Coach Page was there, and of course right. Sully. But then on my court, I actually had Pete Chilcutt and Henrik Rodel, and knew of those guys, didn't know those guys. But Pete Chilcutt won a world championship with the Rockets, and Henrik Rodel was on the German national team that played against the Dream Team. And these are the guys I get to hang out with, from the 93 team. And part of that was, and a lot of Carolina fans know, Eric Montross is going through cancer treatment. And I've worked Montross camp for 15 years, so I've gotten to know Eric and Laura and his kids and the family, the Montross camp family. But a good portion of the 93 championship team, when they heard Eric was down and needed some help, they all came back and worked Montross camp. It was incredible. We had 4 7-footers at Montross camp, and Eric wasn't one of them. They had Kevin Salvador and Lundstrom, and it was just an incredible, act of kindness and friendship and just come support your teammate. And that's what we do. Once you become part of a team, it never ends. And it's going to be like that for life. And those guys coming back, but just to be able to get the chance to meet Pete and spend some time with Henrik was really special for me this summer.
Man, that's neat. Well, obviously, folks, there are a ton more stories that we could share and talk about from camp, and very excited for Coach Robinson to get this book put together and put out. And obviously, we'll have to talk more in depth about that when the time is right. Coach, best of luck to you getting that thing squared away and finished off. And I know that we can't wait to read it and check it out. Now, I also know Milligan, you guys have played against Carolina's JV team. Is that correct? They hosted them in Steve Lacy Fieldhouse.
That's a great story too. But it's hard to find a date sometimes with my varsity schedule and to match up with our JV schedule, to be able to match up with the varsity schedule at Carolina. And one year we were just having a really hard time. Hubert was the head coach of the JV at the time, and we were having a conversation on the phone, just could not find a date. He said, "Well, what if I came to you?" And I said, "What? I don't play away games." He said, "Well, I really like, this group's a cool group, and I really like them. I'd love for them to experience, an away game or getting in a charter, staying overnight in a hotel, and just experience the whole thing." And I was like, "Well, yeah." So they brought the whole team up, and Kane Ma was the point guard at that time, and ended up playing some varsity.
Right.
Made it up to the varsity before he graduated. But the coolest thing for me from that trip was Deward Walker. Deward Walker is the godfather of Milligan basketball, and had taught and coached there for 50 years, and he and his wife lived in the dorm for 47 years. And he coached Del Harris and Sonny Smith. Del, of course, coached Shaq and Kobe with the Lakers, and Sonny Smith coached Charles Barkley at Auburn. But I got a chance to introduce Hubert to Deward Walker. And it was like my two worlds of Carolina and Milligan coming together.
Yeah.
It was just super nice. And Hubert said, I wanted to meet the coach who coached my coach, because Dell had coached Hubert in Dallas. So for me to see those two guys come together was just a really special moment. Of course, they beat us by 15 or 20. Every time the league got up to about 25, Hubert would send in some subs, so we'd get back a little bit closer. But he controlled the game the way a great coach can control the game. He didn't want to beat us too bad, but he wasn't going to let it get too close either. So, but it was just a wonderful time to see the Tar Heels in Steve Lacy Fieldhouse.
Man, that is another great memory. Great stuff. And just, I think, resemblant of who Coach Hubert Davis is and why we're so excited to see him at the helm of the Tar Heels, carrying on the great traditions set by the guys that have come before him, Coach Williams and Coach Smith, Coach Guthridge. And man, just great stuff. Coach Robinson, thank you so much for joining us today. Great stuff. Can't wait to chat with you again soon.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
That's it for today's episode of Locked On Tar Heels. Huge thanks to Coach Bill Robinson for taking time out of his life this summer to come join us on the show today. If you're interested in some NAIA basketball, go check out the Milligan Buffaloes and what they got going on there in East Tennessee. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. Follow me at Isaac Shade. Make sure to go give Coach Rob a follow as well. You can email the show, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Don't forget, on Friday, we've got a mailbag episode coming up, so you definitely want to get in some questions, even a video if you want to send that, and you just email it. Just give us your name, where you're from, and your question, and you might see or hear yourself on the show. Don't forget to subscribe on audio and video format. Smash the like button to let us know you're here. If you're watching, we'd love to hear your comments and thoughts on today's conversation. As always, it's a great day to be at Tar Heel. Thanks so much for spending part of it with us. We'll talk again tomorrow. Coach Pat Kilby joins me to talk about Jae'lyn Withers. But until then, peace.